Hi guys, we are live. Happy Tuesday. I hope all of you guys had an awesome weekend. Just starting to get back into the groove here. And today we are going to talk about traveling with your dogs. So, traveling with dogs is something that I do all the time. I've actually only been on one vacation without my dogs, and it was my honeymoon, and it stressed me out to not have my dogs with me because I'm so used to traveling with them and with all of the stuff. It was actually a lot lighter traveling without the dogs. So today we're going to talk about all the little things that you might not be thinking of, whether you are just headed down the street to a park or whether you're planning a nice long road trip to a dog show or some other vacation or event with your dog. All things travel safety, travel prep. So the first thing that we need to do when we are traveling with our dogs is to plan ahead in terms of what we are going to be packing. So the biggest thing for me is to make a list ahead of time so that you're not forgetting anything. And all of the essentials you're going to want to have organized into one bag that is easy to get to. So when I say essentials, it's going to be things that I'm going to need either along the road, along the route. Hi, Melissa. Or it's going to be things that I'll need, pretty quickly once I arrive at my destination with my dog. So these are going to be things like treats. If it's a long road trip, it might mean an extra meal for the dog or the puppy. It could be things to entertain the dog along the way, like a bully stick or a Kong that I could easily stuff. It's going to be things like my harness and my leash for my dogs, cleanup bags, water bowl. These are all going to be things that we're going to need to grab quickly. And I don't want to be fumbling around with the rest of the stuff. So I put all of this in one bag that's easy to get to so that I know exactly where all of the quick go-to dog essentials are. Now, beyond packing, we need to think about how the dog is going to be traveling in the car too. I included a link in the description for this video to one of our YouTube videos on packing and traveling with dogs. I am a big stickler for car safety. I have seen dogs fly out of truck beds. I've seen dogs jump out windows, and it's really, really dangerous. Hey, Stephen. So when I personally travel with my dogs, I am traveling with them in crates. It's the safest way for them to travel in the car. They're confined. And specifically, I travel with crash tested crates. So these are crates that if I were to get in an accident with the dog, the crate is going to hold up and it keeps the dog safe. They are a little bit of an investment, but if you're traveling with your dog often, it's really something that I recommend that my clients look into. I personally have the Roughland, which is now Rough Tough. They are great kennels. And obviously we do a ton of conditioning with them. Another really good option besides a kennel or a crate in your car is going to be some kind of harness and leash tether. And again, in the descriptions, I have linked over to the Center for Pet Safety, and you can actually see all of the tests they've been doing on these different brands, and then pick something that's going to work best for you, your dog, and your car. I totally understand that not everyone with dogs has the ability to keep a big, crate in their car at all times, and I totally get that. And some people just don't want a crate in their car. Maybe their dog isn't comfortable in crates. So something like a harness and a leash seatbelt tether might be a better option for you. Stephen is asking recommendations for brands. So the ones that I have are Rough Tough Kennel. I like them a lot. Another really popular kennel brand is the Impact Kennel. They also have the Vario Cage. So there's lots of different brands, but all of them will be linked to from that Center for Pet Safety. And the big thing with these guys, if you are planning on going for a kennel, first of all, remember that it's an investment. We have had ours for years and they still look brand new. So they're going to last a long time as well. But make sure you measure your car, measure the kennels, really make sure it's going to fit. So all of those will be linked over on the Center for Pet Safety website, and that will help you make the best decision for your family in terms of safety. Because not only do we want the dog to be kept safe just in case we get into some kind of accident, but we also want them confined in some type of manner that they're not going to be a big distraction for you. Because if you're on a long road trip, the last thing you need to be doing is like body blocking your dog into the back seat. That's just dangerous. We don't want that at all. We want safe and comfortable travel for you and for the dog. So plan ahead of time. Yep, no problem, Stephen. Plan ahead of time what kind of, situation you think you might want for your car, and make sure you get it early enough that you've got some time to condition your dog to it and get them comfortable with it. Because again, the last thing we want is to, oh, we got this brand new kennel and hey, we're leaving for a road trip tomorrow. We want to give our dogs time to get comfortable with them. So if you end up going for the crate option and your dog is not super crazy about it, actually, the Facebook Live that I've linked to in the descriptions that we did a couple weeks ago on crate conditioning, that is the same exact process that I did with my dogs with our travel crates, and they love them. They literally, they usually jump into the crates faster than we can even get their leashes unattached because they like them so much. So we can condition them, and we want to make sure we're spending that time to condition them to it. Good morning, Christine. So let's talk about day of travel. I have certainly woken up at like 2 a.m. before to head out and drive somewhere with my dogs, depending on how long that road trip is. And I know it's painful to get up earlier than we have to, but try to set your dog up for success. Make sure you get them out early on a walk the day before, right? Maybe a nice long hike or a longer neighborhood walk than they're used to. Get them out the morning of. Give them plenty of time to potty, plenty of time to stretch their legs and sniff. Because if they're a little bit on the tired side, it's going to be a lot easier for them to just take a nap in the car, which is going to make travel a lot more peaceful for everybody. So remember to make sure that you're setting them up for success in terms of tiring them out a little bit mentally and physically before we get in the car and need them to be quiet and stationary and relaxed for long periods of time. The other thing that we want to think about in terms of setting the dog up for success, beyond training and getting them used to the crate or the seatbelt, and beyond exercising, we want to think about what we need to do along the road. Now, my dogs are pretty experienced travelers at this point. We live in Atlanta, Georgia, and they've driven with us up to West Virginia several times. They've driven out to Colorado with us, so they're used to long crate rides, and they don't need a ton of extra enrichment. But if travel is new for your dog or you've got a puppy, you're going to need to plan ahead and think about some activities that they can do in the car. So if we can see them visibly, you can offer things like bully sticks. You could definitely put in like antlers or buffalo horns in the crates with them so they've got something to chew on. You could even, if they don't get car sick, plan some activities like Kongs, and they don't have to be frozen because that can get messy. Or if you need them to be frozen because you need that longer lasting activity, pack along a little cooler. So there's lots of different things that you can give them along the way, but we want to make sure all of that is planned and prepped ahead of time so it's really easy for you to kind of give to your dog at rest stops and things like that. So let's talk about those rest stops. You're going to need to go to the bathroom along this road trip. Your dog is going to need to go as well. Through my travels, I have found that, unfortunately, the most convenient places to stop in terms of I need to fill the car up with gas and I need to grab a quick snack, those are not always the safest places for us to be stopping with our dogs. There can be a lot of trash. There's also just a lot of activity at places like that. And so if you think about it, especially when traveling with a puppy who might not be fully vaccinated, we want to be taking our dogs, even adult dogs, to the least dog trafficked places because they're less likely to pick up any transmittable diseases. So we want to thank you, Tabitha, with the ribbons. Yes, I displayed some of them there for you guys. So we want our rest stops to be safe. We want them to be less trafficked so that we're not really having to worry quite as much about being on the side of a highway and worrying about all that traffic. So we pull over, we'll stop at the gas station to fill the car up, we'll go in and grab our drinks there, and then generally what we do is drive down the street to the nearest restaurant because the restaurants are going to have less trafficked, kind of grassy or wooded areas on the side to let the dogs potty. And then it's usually a little further away from the road too. So again, it's safer for the dogs. So That's what we like to do when we are stopping to kind of let them stretch their legs and go to the bathroom and things like that. And then whenever we stop, we're always offering them some fresh water to make sure that they are staying hydrated along the trip as well. If you want to offer some kind of enrichment when they get back into the car, that would be a good opportunity to do that as well. Now, because you're going to be far away from home on your travels, you want to make sure that your dogs have identification on them. So we generally, when we're home and the dogs are hanging out, in the house with us, they're not really wearing collars. I keep them naked most of the time, so they're not wearing a lot of extra stuff. But whenever we travel, we always have collars that have their name, a phone number, so that if they were to get loose, somebody would be able to find them and have that identification on them. The other thing that I really want to make sure of is that your equipment is fitting them properly. I cannot tell you guys how many times, in lessons or group classes, we've got clients that come up and totally understandably don't maybe know how to work the equipment all that well, but we've got loose body harnesses, we've got collars that can slide right over the dog's head. And especially when we're in high traffic areas where they might be more worried about loud noises, they might, if they get loose, they might take off and not know where they are. We really want to make sure that that equipment is fit properly so they can't get out of it, and that we're really being vigilant about holding on to our leashes. Don't have your leash in one hand and your phone in the other. Keep an eye on your dog, keep an eye on that leash, and hang on tight, because the last thing we want is for our dogs to be getting loose in unknown areas where we could lose them and they could get hurt as well. So make sure that you're checking all your equipment for fit and for structural integrity. Make sure we don't have frayed leashes or frayed collars, and then make sure all that equipment has identification so that someone could get a hold of you if the worst case scenario did happen. So frequent stops along the way. With puppies, it's going to have to be a little bit more frequent than with adult dogs. But generally, when we need to stop and go to the bathroom, that's when we're letting our dogs out as well. So during the travel, we want to make sure that the dogs are comfortable and quiet in the crate. If you've got a dog that is a little bit more sensitive, sound-wise or visually, that crate can help keep them a little bit quiet. Some of my clients who have very visually reactive dogs will even cover the crate so that it's nice and dark and they can just rest and not stress out about what's going on. The other thing is, I know you guys know that I'm a big fan of classical music, like Through a Dog's Ear, that has been shown to reduce stress. So we could even turn on that little music box in the back of the car next to the crate so that they've got some calming classical music to keep them quiet and relaxed, but also drown out any external noises like motorcycles or loud semis that are driving by, right? It'll just help keep them a little bit more relaxed. The other thing that I'm going to do when I travel with my dogs is I really want to make sure that, first of all, I know where we're going. And I find the local hospitals around the area, any emergency clinics and things like that, because you never know when something is going to happen unexpected, especially if you're traveling with your dogs looks anything like mine does, and it's full of adventure. We're going places to hike and bike and go sledding with the dogs and skiing with the dogs. And so with all of that adventure comes unexpected, injuries or illness. So I always like to be prepared and know exactly where the local clinics are and kind of pick out which ones I think I would want to go to. And I actually save those phone numbers and those addresses in my smartphone, in my iPhone. So I'll go to the notes section in my phone and I'll just copy and paste that info in there. And I have actually had to use that. We had a kind of really unexpected health injury happen with one of our dogs when I was at a dog show. And I woke up in the middle of the night. And when you're stressed and frazzled about your dog's well-being, your brain isn't really processing very normally. But I had that information saved on my phone. And so I called them, told them I was on my way. I had the address so I could just pop it into my GPS because I wasn't familiar with the area. And it was really, really easy. And so that kind of stuff, we don't expect to have injuries and illnesses frequently with our dogs, but I always like to be prepared. So the other thing that goes along with kind of medical emergencies or unexpected issues is making sure that you're traveling with the right paperwork for your dog. I always like to print out, and you'll see it in my YouTube video that I've linked to in the description. I like to bring along, an in case of emergency packet for my dog. And each dog has one on their crate. It's just a cheap little pencil pouch. I got it at the dollar store for like 90 cents. And I printed info from my computer, and it's got safety info so that if I were to be separated from my dog or had to go in on emergency, I could hand that over, and it's got all their vaccine info. It has medical information. It might even have blood work or, prescriptions that they're on. So by traveling with all of that and having that all prepared, again, it's one of those things that we probably won't need it, but it's always better to be safe than sorry with them. So that's kind of how I plan and prepare my trips. And, honestly, all that safety information, all the packing stuff, I have that ready, even if I'm just driving an hour away to go hike. I have the same level of, preparedness for a short trip like that as I do with traveling across the country on a 2-day road trip with the dogs. And it helps give me peace of mind. It helps create a little bit of consistency too, both in your routine and in the dog's routine. And the dogs get pretty adjusted to it. They're excited to get in the crates in the car when we're about to travel with them. And it just becomes kind of this normal routine of excitement to get in and go somewhere fun. But then they get relaxed because they kind of know the routine. So no matter how you're traveling with your dogs, again, short trip, long trip, planning ahead of time and packing what you need to, planning ahead of time to get medical records for your dog and figure out medically where they would go if you needed them to. And then make sure on the front end, you're doing all the preparing you need to, both with training to get them comfortable with the car and whatever form of confinement you choose, as well as day of exercising them beforehand. So it's easier for them to relax in that environment. Christine says, I have 2 dogs. Both love their crates in the house. They are extra large. And the crates are bigger than my car. What is your suggestion? If you're watching, Christine, what kinds of dogs are they? I have Alaskan Malamutes. So my male, when he's conditioned in the winter, is usually around 92 pounds. So he's a big boy. And their crates inside are extra large as well. The travel crates that are going in the car are generally smaller because, and they're supposed to be, we want just enough room for them to lay down comfortably. And my boy can stand up and kind of turn around in the crate and lay back down too. But we want the crate small enough so that if you were to get in an accident, think of what would happen to them. They'd kind of go flying. With less space in the crate, there's less room for them to fly around and get hurt. So if you look at how you appropriately size, 100 pounds with long legs. So if you have that big of a dog, you're definitely, if you're traveling frequently with them, I choose my car based on my dogs. I mean, we just got a new car, and it's literally so that I can fit all my dogs and their crates in the car. So if you can't fit a crate large enough in your car for your dogs, then we definitely could go with more of the seatbelt option for them. The link in the description for the Center for Pet Safety does go over some of the seatbelt harness options that you can do. And that would be better than nothing, and again, if you're traveling frequently enough with your dogs, then that kind of consideration can go into maybe the next purchase of our vehicle that we do. But, it's not going to be a perfect thing for everybody. I totally get that big dogs in crates are hard to fit in cars and not always the most convenient, because my life is kind of rotated around the dogs or revolving around the dogs. I did make that selection specific so I could fit those in. But I would recommend that you look into those seatbelt options and see if there's something there that can fit. And then at least there's a little bit of that safety component there for them. So if you were to get in an accident, they're confined just a little bit for that safety. But good question. That's a big dog, and 100 pounds with long legs probably is difficult to fit in most vehicles, period. Um, so when you are kind of thinking about your travel or plans that you guys have ahead, in the description here, you'll find a link to another one of our travel videos that we have on YouTube that kind of shows you the setup that we personally have with our car. Might kind of give you some ideas. I also have a link in the description to the other Facebook Live event that we did. It'll link it to YouTube, that goes over different methods for conditioning the crate. I don't have one on seat belts. However, what I would recommend is that you start with getting the dog comfortable with the harness and then sitting in the car stationary. And I would probably reward them for being stationary for just a little bit before you even clip them in. And then once you clip them, you could just sit stationary in the car with them and do random reinforcement for them. You could even turn the car on and let it just run. And with you sitting in the front seat, turn around and intermittently feed your dog. It's an easy thing to do during dinner, for breakfast, so they get some extra repetitions in and get used to that setup before you have to travel. So you can take a look at those two links. If you're looking to purchase something in terms of crates or harnesses, take a look at that Center for Pet Safety link that I put in there so that you can do research and figure out what's going to be the best option for you and your dog and your car. And then I want to know, for all of you that travel with your dogs, whether you're just going to a local park for a walk, or maybe you're planning a longer road trip with them for a vacation or for some kind of dog sport event, I want to know what your biggest challenge is when you travel with your dogs. Because what we're going to do is try to bring you guys more content and see how we can help you. So if you travel with your dogs, I want to know what the biggest challenge is for you and your dog. What is preventing you from having that peaceful road trip? So you can comment that in the section here below, and we will be sure to get back to you guys. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope that this was helpful for you. If you've got questions about how to travel with your pup, again, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We travel a lot with ours, and kind of over the years have figured out things that work and don't work. And it's always nice when you can have a peaceful road trip. It makes everything a lot more enjoyable for you and for the dog. So I hope that helps you guys. And I hope that even with this pandemic, you have some fun road trips planned. Excuse me. Planned for you and your dog, whether it's just to a park for a walk at a new place, or maybe even a fun adventure, which we might be having one of those pretty soon ourselves. So I will be sure to report back to you guys. All right, have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.